other thing that comes to mind that holds people back from raising the private money is a lack of confidence. So how do you get the confidence? Well, you need to know what it is that you're offering, right? What are you offering? Well, my program works pretty good. So I just say, just duplicate what it is that I'm offering, and you as well will be able to attract the private money into your world, just like me.
If you're a real estate investor and are wondering how to raise and leverage private money to make more profit on every deal, then you're in the right place. On Raising Private Money, we'll speak with new and seasoned investors to dissect their deals and extract the best tips and strategies to help you get the money, because the money comes first. Now here's your host, Jay Conner.
What about the problem of exiting property, selling the property after you flipped it?
When the market slows down, we just pivot with the market. If banks are not lending, if it's hard for people to get mortgages, then I have sold a lot of houses on lease purchase, rent to own. How does that work? The buyer give us a large non-refundable lease option deposit.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Path of Progress. I'm your host Alex Kononov, and today's guest is someone who's been in trenches of real estate since 2003, an expert in creative financing and one of the top voices in the world of private money lending. Please welcome to the show Jay Conner, also known as the Private Money Authority. Jay has rehabbed over 500 homes and has completed more than 120 million in real estate transactions. What's more inspiring, Jay has built a system that allows him to work less than 10 hours per week while helping others raise millions in private equity. Jay, welcome to the show.
Alex, thank you so much for inviting me along to talk about my most passionate topic, and that's private money. And the reason I'm so excited about private money is because when I started using private money all the way back in 2009, since that time, Alex, I've never missed out on a deal for not having the funding ready to go. I'm able to close deals in 7 days. I get the money without ever asking for money, and I can't wait to dive into how all this works.
Love it. Jay, for someone who still don't know you for some reason, can you start from very beginning? How did you discover real estate in the first place?
Oh, wow. Real estate in the first place. Well, I was actually raised in the real estate business, if you will. My father, Wallace Conner, he's getting ready to turn 92 years old in a couple of weeks from now. And at one time, his company was the largest company in the nation that was selling and manufacturing mobile homes, manufactured housing. And of course, Alex, you being down there in Florida, I know you've seen a lot of mobile homes down there in Florida. Well, my dad and his company was the largest retailer of mobile homes. And so I grew up in a family and around an industry of helping people own a home in affordable housing. Well, unfortunately, in the early 2000s, the consumer financing, the financing for the product fell out of favor with Wall Street, and the financing went away. Well, people aren't walking around with $20, $30, $40, $50,000 in their pocket. And if you don't have financing for the product, then you're out of business. So it took a couple of years for us to liquidate out of the business. And I knew if I ever got out of manufactured housing and mobile homes, I knew I wanted to get into single family housing and investing in single family housing, flipping. I started flipping houses in 2003 before HGTV was even on television, right? I mean, it wasn't even a sexy thing to do. But in answer to your question, I grew up around the industry of helping people own a home.
So your first transaction you did working with banks?
Oh, yes. So from 2003, when I started, and we're here in Eastern North Carolina in a very, very small market. Our total market that we invest in has only got 40,000 people. We do 2 to 3 deals a month. Average profits now are $86,000 per transaction. And I don't share that, Alex, to brag at all. I share that to make a point. And the point is there's an argument to be made to dominate a small market instead of trying to compete in the really, really big markets. But yes, in 2003, I started using banks. That's all I knew to do. I had a line of credit at the local bank, and using bank conventional institutional financing worked out okay the first 6 years from 2003 until January of 2009. But you know, Alex, everything changed. Everything changed in January 2009. I called up my banker. I had 2 houses under contract to close on and purchase. And I learned like that my line of credit had been closed with no notice to me. And that's when everything pivoted and changed.
Wow. But how big were you at that time? In 6 years, did you try to build a rental portfolio or you just did flipping?
I was doing both. But most of the properties and the deals we were doing were flipping properties in those first 6 years.
So when in 2009 they cut you off, what did you do with those 2 properties?
Wow. I remember it like it was yesterday. In fact, I was sitting right here at my desk and I was talking to my banker. His name was Steve. And I tell him about these 2 houses that I've got under contract. He tells me that my line of credit has been closed. I said, Steve, what in the world are you telling me? My line of credit is closed. I've always made my payments on time. I've got a great credit score. What's going on? And Steve said, Jay, don't you know there's a global financial crisis going on right now? I said, no, but you just gave me a financial crisis. I don't have a way to fund these 2 deals. So I hung up the phone, Alex. I sat here at my desk and I thought for a moment. And I want to share with you and your audience a very powerful question that I ended up asking myself. And as a matter of fact, this question will help fix any problem anybody's got. I don't care if it's health, relationships, financial, career, it doesn't matter. And here's the question I asked myself, Alex, when I hung up the phone from my banker. I said to myself, Jay, who do you know that can help fix your problem? And by the way, Alex, these people running around saying every problem's an opportunity. I want to throw up. I didn't have an opportunity. I had a problem. Now, the problem became an opportunity. I mean, I wouldn't be here on your show today if I hadn't gone through this, challenge and this difficulty. So I asked myself, I said, Jay, who do you know that can help fix your problem? And you know what's interesting, Alex? I immediately thought of Jeff Blankenship. He's a dear friend. We know him through church, gospel singing events. And Jeff was investing in single family houses in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time. So I called up Jeff and I told him what had just happened, getting cut off at the bank. And Jeff says, well, Jay, welcome to the club. And I thought to myself, well, I'm not sure I want to be a member of that club. I said, Jeff, what club are you talking about? He said, well, that's the club of having your line of credit shut down and closed with no notice. He said, my bank shut me down last week. I said, well, Jeff, how are you going to fund your deals if you don't have bank financing? He said, he says, have you ever heard of private money and private lending? I said, no. He said, have you ever heard of self-directed IRAs and how individuals can take their current retirement funds, move them over to a self-directed IRA company approved by the IRS, and then they can loan that money out to us real estate investors, and the interest we pay them is either tax deferred or tax free. I said, Jeff, I don't have a clue what in the world you're talking about. I said, what is private money? He says, well, I'm not sure. He says, but there's this gentleman down in Jacksonville, Florida, by the name of Ron LeGrand. And Jeff says, I've heard Ron LeGrand can tell us about private money. I said, well, what is it? He said, I don't know, but Ron LeGrand says we can get a lot of it really, really fast. So I went, Alex, to my very first real estate investing conference. After being in this business for 6 years, I was relying on my experience in the mobile home business up until that time. I went to Ron LeGrand's event. and I learned about private money. I came back here to home, Alex, and I put together my opportunity. There's the key right there. I put together my opportunity that I was going to share and teach to people in my own network. So what did I do? I put on my teacher hat. My teacher hat says Private Money Teacher. And I just went about teaching, leading with a servant's heart, teaching people in my own network, people I go to church with, people in the Rotary Club, people in my own network, about this opportunity I have on how to become a private lender and get high rates of return safely and securely. So I put my opportunity together, how I was going to protect them, the kind of interest rate they would get. And here's some secret sauce right here, Alex, big time secret sauce. You see, desperation has a smell to it. There's a writer downer right there. Desperation has a smell to it. You see, I didn't talk about any deals that I needed funded. If you talk to a potential private lender, somebody in your own network, say, I got 47 private lenders. None of them ever heard of private money, private lending, or self-directed IRAs until I put on my teacher hat and I told them about it. But a big part of the secret here is do not talk about a deal that you need funded in the initial conversation of talking about private money and private lending. That's going to make you sound desperate without you even trying to sound desperate. So here's a big secret sauce. Separate the conversations between teaching the opportunity and how it works and how they can get high rates of return safely and securely, and then having a deal for them to fund. When I have a deal for them to fund, I call them up and I give them what I call the good news phone call. The good news phone call. I never ask for money. I never pitch a deal. And it's because we separate the conversations of teaching the opportunity. They love it. They tell us how much they got to invest. If they've got retirement funds, we introduce them to the self-directed IRA company that we recommend. They move their funds over. And then when we got a deal to fund, they're ready to go. They already know what the maximum loan to value is and all that stuff. And so it's just a very, very easy process.
So you got an issue, right? You didn't have money and you went to the conference, you started networking, you understand what's going on. You come back to your city, to your hometown, and you started educating people around you, which naturally had a pretty successful pool of investors just from that hometown. But tell me this, Jay, you're solving the problem of financing, but what about the problem of exiting property, selling the property after you flipped it? Because you got into the financial crisis and now you think, okay, I'll solve this problem. I'm still going to do the flip. The numbers will change, right? We're going to crash. So everything's changing. People stop lending and money supply demand kind of changing. The whole balance is ruined. So how did you avoid that issue, that thought in your head and keep pushing?
So when the market slows down, we just pivot with the market. So if banks are not lending, if it's hard for people to get mortgages, then I have sold a lot of houses, a lot of homes on lease purchase, rent to own. You know, over 70% of people can't even go to the bank today and get a mortgage. And so we'll sell the home on lease purchase. So how does that work? Well, the buyer will give us a large non-refundable lease option deposit. So we don't accept anything less than 5% of the selling price. So if the selling price is $300,000, we're not going to accept anything less than $15,000 in the form of a non-refundable lease option deposit. That lease option deposit, we will credit to the buyer when they're mortgage ready. Now, one thing we do very, very different than a lot of other real estate investors is we actually force our lease option buyer into credit repair. The main reason they can't have a mortgage because they don't have a high enough credit score. And so we force them into credit repair, and typically it will take about 12 months to get them what we call mortgage ready. Now, if they do what we tell them to do, they'll get ready for a mortgage. If they don't and they move on, then they forfeit the non-refundable lease option deposit.
How did you come up with a strategy? I mean, you just were 6 years in the deal, you were flipping houses. Was it your main strategy from the day one?
No, I didn't know anything about selling on lease purchase, those first 6 years. And so I learned about selling on lease purchase. It's also called rent to own. About the same time I learned about private money. I also learned about buying on creative financing. I never heard of buying subject to the existing note until after being in the business for 6 years. So, we've been tracking and serving people facing foreclosure ever since 2004. And those people will sell subject to the existing note, where they agree to sell you their house, leave the note or the mortgage in their name, and you as the buyer, you agree to make their payments for them and bring their payments current. And you say, who in the world would agree to do that? A seller that wants debt relief is who will agree. So my rule of thumb is, when I'm using private money to purchase a property and rehab it all the way, then my preferred exit strategy is to cash out. So use all cash to buy it, use all cash to renovate it, and then I want to cash out. My preferred strategy is not to leave private money buried in that house. However, if I buy on what's called terms, if I buy subject to the existing note, if I buy with seller financing to where the seller gives me a note and I buy the property, then my intentional exit strategy is to sell it on terms, buy on terms, sell on terms, such as on lease purchase. Because the longer you own a property and it's cash flowing, the more money you make.
Love it. I think it's an important lesson for our listeners. First 6 years, you didn't know about the strategies, but what happened? You started networking, you started talking to people, you went to the conference, and you've heard of many different strategies, and you came back to your hometown and started utilizing and trying and talking to people. So communication, networking is the key in this business. So at this point, you realized private money is the way to go, and you never came back to the bank, right?
Correct. I never even heard of hard money lenders until after being in the business for 6 years. And hard money is very, very different than private money. Hard money is very, very different than institutional, banks and mortgage companies. But when I talk private money, I'm not talking hard money. Hard money is institutional money. Hard money lending is typically a broker of money, to where they have gone out and raised money for their fund from individual investors. And then the hard money lender turns around and loans that money out to us, real estate investors. So private money is very different. Private money is a one-on-one transaction between you, the borrower, the real estate investor, and the individual. So there's no origination fees. There's no broker. It's that transaction directly between you and the private lender. And by the way, these private lenders, I'm not looking for rich people. I'm not looking for rich people. In fact, none of my private lenders ever heard of private money until I taught them about it and exposed it to them. So what I'm looking for, and what my students and my members look for, is what we call lazy money. Lazy money is what we're looking for. All of our private lenders are ordinary people, just ordinary people like you and me. And they've got either investment capital or they've got retirement funds. And the reason we call it lazy money is because it's not working for them. So now we come along with a solution to actually put their investment capital that they might have in a CD at the local bank, or they might have a 401k from a previous employer, or they might have retirement funds in the stock market. So we come along with a solution to put their money to work and get them higher rates of return safely and securely.
Now, Jay, for our listeners who just a beginner, who's just trying and maybe exploring private money side, tell me, how does he get protected from the downside and from any issues that can happen to the property? How they can protect their money in your deals?
That's a great question. So first of all, we don't borrow unsecured funds, and I don't recommend that to anybody either. Do not borrow unsecured funds. Everything that we do is called asset-backed debt. Asset-backed debt, which means when we borrow the money for the real estate deal, we are going to give the lender, the private lender, the individual, we're going to give them a promissory note, but in addition to that, we're going to give them a deed of trust in North Carolina. In Texas, it's a deed of trust. Most states call it a mortgage. So that mortgage or deed of trust collateralizes the note. So if you don't pay the private lender, they get the property. If you don't pay them, they get the property. So that's one big way that they're protected. Another big way they're protected is do not borrow more than 75% of the after repaired value of that property. So to make numbers very, very simple, let's say that you're buying a house, and I'm going to use small numbers to make it easy to understand. Let's say you're buying a house with an after repaired value. Now, my definition of after repaired value is it's absolutely beautiful. It looks new. It smells new. New paint, new floor covering, all that. So let's say that you're buying a house that's got an after repaired value of $200,000 for easy figuring. So in that example, you would not want to borrow and protect your private lender. Don't borrow more than 75% of the $200,000. Don't borrow more than $150,000. But let's watch how the cash flow goes. You see, if that property needs $30,000 or $40,000 renovation, I'll buy that house for $100,000, 50% of the after repaired value. So let's watch the cash flow. You go to the closing table and you're buying it for $100,000. Well, your private lender is going to wire $150,000 to your closing agent, the title company or your real estate attorney. In North Carolina, we use real estate attorneys for closings. So there's a $50,000 excess cash to close. They wired $150,000. $100,000 is going to go to the seller. I've got a check coming to me from my real estate attorney for $50,000 less closing costs. So that's excess cash to close. We always get a check when we purchase. Always get a check when we purchase and never have to take any of our own money to the closing table. And here's a double check. If you can't bring home a big check when you buy the property using private money, you're paying too much for the property. So we get that $50,000 check. Now, the majority of that check is going to go towards the renovation, the rehab. But you've got some extra money there that you can use for carrying costs and et cetera. So we protect the private lender with a deed of trust or a mortgage. In addition to that, again, that's the conservative loan to value. Don't borrow more than 75% of the after repaired value. That's going to give your private lender what we call a 25% equity cushion. It's going to be worth $200,000 after the renovation, and you're not borrowing more than $150,000. Now, in addition to that, we protect our private lender by naming the private lender on the insurance policy as the mortgagee. We name the private lender as the mortgagee on the insurance policy, the property insurance policy, which means if there's ever a claim, an insurance claim for that property, the insurance company is going to make the check payable not only to you, but also your private lender, which means your private lender's got to sign off on that check. We also name the private lender as an additional insured on the title policy. So we have all these different layers of protection for our private lenders.
No, 100%. And you basically reinventing the process, not reinventing, but replicating the process of how banks operate. So you put this private lender in the bank position, and in the first position, if anything happens to the property, if anything, they get first dibs on the property and the money that coming from that property. Makes sense. And I think it's a great start to education yourself if you want to start, for our listeners in this business, either money lender on active side. It's important to understand all the pieces of the puzzle. But tell me, Jay, in your education process, how did you educate? Did you create a mastermind? Did you create a meetup to meet with people, or you just go one by one and educating one person at a time?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, all my private lenders, I educated them most of them one at a time, but there's a caveat to that. So I also put on what I call a private lender luncheon. And my very first private lender luncheon, I had it at the Dunes Club at Atlantic Beach, and I had about 25 people there, and that included my real estate attorney, that included my realtor, that included my home inspector, that included my CPA, my accountant. And I invited these other people, and I had one or two current private lenders that were already lending money. So I invited them to this luncheon. I bought them lunch. And after about 20 or 25 minutes into it, I put on my presentation. I put on my teacher hat. And I did about a 20, 25-minute presentation on what is private money and how you can earn high rates of return safely and securely. You know what's interesting, Alex? From just that one private lender luncheon, I raised over $900,000 just from that one private lender luncheon. So, it takes the same amount of time to share the opportunity with potential private lenders to 20 of them as it does one. So I did all the above. I did one-on-one, and I did group meetings as well and luncheons.
But in the end of the day, you meet in face to face. It's still a handshake, and it's a lot of money, right? People invest a lot of money, 50,000, 100,000, or even more than that in the deal. And they need to understand that you're a good person, right? They need to have a connection. In the end of the day, it's still very personal business, and you need to have this connection between the investor and yourself and make sure they understand who you are and where you're coming and what's your business and strategies and goals.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, regardless of how much protection that you give them, right? And by the way, I've been paying our private lenders 8% ever since 2009. I haven't gone down. I haven't gone up. And people say, well, Jay, how in the world are you still paying 8% and no origination fees? And mortgage rates have just, gone up the ceiling, ever since COVID came along the last 2 or 3 years. I said, well, it's real simple. Number one, we make the rules. This is not a negotiation conversation. The traditional way to borrow money, everybody thinks, 99% of people walking around thinks, well, whoever's got the money makes the rules. Well, that's traditional thinking. The bank makes the rules, right? The hard money lender makes the rules. Well, I turned this upside down 180 degrees and went the opposite direction. The lender doesn't make the rules in this world. We make the rules. Instead of applying for a mortgage, there is no application. I got great news. You, as a real estate investor borrower for private money, you're already approved. There's no approval process other than your private lender has got to like you and trust you, regardless of the protection you give them. They got to like you and trust you. But as far as the interest rates you're paying, how you're protecting them, the length of the note, the frequency of the payments, all that is in what you are offering in the opportunity. You're not applying for a mortgage. You're not begging, chasing, selling, persuading anybody, anything. You're serving. One thing I discovered over the years, Alex, is the private lenders need us as much as we need them. They're looking for a better and higher rate of return. My wife, Carol Joy, and I, we've received handwritten letters in the mail from our private lenders thanking us for changing their retirement years.
Love it. I think it's very important, and you're doing a good deal, right? In the end of the day, you're helping people, and this is how it should be positioned. You're not begging anyone for money. You're creating opportunities, and you're educating people. Everything comes from education. So let's go back to your lunch. Raising in 20 minutes $900,000. It's quite an impressive journey. But tell us, did you try to pitch the deal on the lunch, or was it all about education? And just when you had opportunity, just follow up. You knew those people ready, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, no deals, no particular deals, just teaching the opportunity and how the private lender opportunity works. And so with you asking that, Alex, that triggers me to share. I want to give you and your audience the script. I want to give you the script right now as to how I get my deals funded when I call up my private lender and I get my deal funded 100% of the time, every time, every time. And so, Alex, let's pretend that you and I have known each other for some time. And let's say, for example, we go to church together. And let's assume that I have taught you about the private lending opportunity and you like it. Let's also assume that you've got $150,000 in a 401k retirement plan at a previous employer, and you haven't moved it, and you're not happy with the returns. And let's also assume I've told you about the opportunity. I've told you about the private lending opportunity. You like the interest rate of 8%. You like all that. And let's also assume that I have introduced you to the self-directed IRA company that I recommend. And let's assume you've moved that $150,000 over to the self-directed IRA company. And now your account's funded and you are waiting to invest in a deal. You're waiting for the good news phone call for me to call you up. So here's the script. I call you up, you answer the phone, and here's exactly what I say. I say, Alex, I have got great news for you. I can now put your money to work. I've got a house under contract in Newport, North Carolina, with an after-repaired value of $200,000. Now, the funding required for this deal matches up to what you've got in your retirement account. $150,000 is what's required. Now, closing is going to be next Friday. I'll need for you to wire your $150,000 to my real estate attorney's trust account by next Thursday. I'm going to have my real estate attorney email you the wiring instructions. That's the end of the conversation. I mean, the most stupid thing in the world I could say to Alex is, Alex, do you want to fund the deal? Well, of course he wants to fund the deal. And there's three big reasons why Alex is dying to fund this deal of $150,000. The first reason he wants to fund the deal is he trusted me and moved his $150,000 over to the self-directed IRA company that I recommended. The second reason Alex is wanting to fund my deal is because Alex knows I'm not going to bring a deal for him to fund unless it matches the criteria of the program that I already taught him. He knows I'm not going to borrow more than 75% of the after-repaired value. Well, did you hear what I said in the script? I told Alex I got a house in Newport under contract with an after-repaired value of $200,000. And the funding for the deal is $150,000. That's 75% of the after-repaired value. And the third reason that Alex is dying to fund my deal is because he's not making any money until he invests that money in one of my deals. So again, the progression as to how it comes about is critically important.
Wow, that's a masterclass right here. It's very important. So you educated, then you went through the process, you explaining all the steps in the middle, and you knew he was ready already to invest. You already had this many conversation educating this person and explaining your exact model, exact guidance, and you showing like, hey, I'm doing this deal and this deal. You showing him, you building this momentum, you building this desire and eager for people to invest with you. And when you're ready, it's not a question if, it's hey, we need funding then. That's it. End of story. End of conversation.
That's it.
Very impressive. Jay, tell us, what was your biggest raise today?
My biggest raise?
General. Yes.
Well, I've got, I said these are ordinary people, and they are.
One deal.
Yeah.
For one deal.
For one deal? Yeah, the biggest deal I've done is $900,000 on a single family house. I've got one private lender. She is a retired school teacher, and she and her husband built up their retirement funds for all those years. And just that one retired school teacher's got $1,250,000 with me. Now, that's not with just one deal. That is spread over, multiple projects and multiple deals that we've got going on. So I've got some private lenders that they only have $100,000 with us. And, when you're sharing and teaching the opportunity, one of the first things that you'll want to decide is what is the minimum amount that you're going to accept from a private lender. because they'll ask you. I mean, they'll say, well, what's the minimum that I can start with? Because they want to get their feet wet, right? They want to see how this goes. So you need to decide what your minimum is. My minimum now is $50,000. I can't buy a house for $50,000 typically, but I can use $50,000 on a renovation or a rehab. And when you get into this and you start doing it, you may end up with the same problem that I have, and that is there's more money than there are deals. There's more money. There's more private money available than there are deals. Prior to COVID, there was $18 trillion in cash just sitting on the sidelines. And this side of COVID, over $31 trillion in cash just sitting on the sidelines. So people are looking for a place to invest their money. And guess what? It's your job to relieve them of that problem.
No, yeah, 100%. But I think you just mentioned something very important. People who already invest in you build this rapport, you give them some returns and their money when the deal is completed, and they reinvest this money again with you and again, and they increase the pie. Now you feel you don't have to go after hundreds of investors. You can just build relationship with a few and just continue this relationship in a meaningful way.
Absolutely, because you get to use the money over and over and over again. And when you cash out a property and you're selling a house, then guess what? They don't want the money back. I'll call up my private lender, particularly a new one, and I'll say, look, we're getting ready to sell 411 Chatham Street, and you're going to be getting a payoff check of $150,000 from the closing attorney. And invariably they'll say, well, Jay, can't you just keep the money? And the answer is no, you can't keep the money unless you're going to keep it collateralized by a property and protect your private lender.
100%. I think it's important for listeners who wants to be in private money. It's important to have every transaction separated. You can't commingle funds. You have to be one at a time. And if you want to reinvest with your operator or anyone like Jay, it has to be every separate transaction documented properly, and everything should be accounted for.
Absolutely.
So Jay, tell us a little bit about your mentorship and educational program. I know you've coached over 2,000 investors throughout the years. What's one pattern you see in people who succeeded with private money?
So the great news is the high majority of our students and members in my mastermind group, in my Platinum Plus coaching program, the high majority of them succeed. They get their own deals, they get their own private money, their own private lenders. And the reason they succeed is because what I coach and what I teach is actually working in the world today. I could not ethically coach and teach other real estate investors how to do this unless I was still doing it myself today, as far as what's happening in the real world. And the mistake or the thing that holds back some of the real estate investors is this thing called fear. So they have in their mind that, who's going to loan me money? I've never done a deal before. And so, first of all, I answer that question with this question, and that is, how can you be fearful of rejection if you're not asking anybody anything? You're not asking them for money. Remember, there's no applications. We're not asking people for money. We're educating. We're educating people on this opportunity. And I can tell you, if they have money, then in all likelihood, they're going to want to get involved. They're going to want to get involved. And the only other thing that comes to mind that holds people back from raising the private money is a lack of confidence. So how do you get the confidence? Well, you need to know what it is that you're offering, right? What are you offering? Well, my program works pretty good. So I just say, just duplicate what it is that I'm offering, and you as well will be able to attract the private money into your world, just like me.
I think it's important to understand the strategies of investing and how you invest and what kind of strategy you use to flip, to renovate can differ probably, but how you raise money in the end of the day, it stays because it's a human factor. It's communication, it's education. Your core basis values, your core basis educational principles will be forever the same, because people value interaction and human contact, and again, understand. And it's great to educate people through podcasts and to go on Zoom calls and listen to it, but nothing can replace a human interaction and talking to people and shaking hand and say, hey, I'm a real person, I'm out here and I want to give you value. It's more about giving values and taking. And people feel it. If people feel that you give more than you take, then they naturally gonna lean towards you. And if you have a deal at some point, you can provide this opportunity. And honestly, at this point, it won't matter for you if they will invest or not, because you have educated so many people already, and some of them would love this opportunity with you. And this energy, it translates in this human interaction.
Absolutely, Alex. And like when I'm putting on a private lender luncheon or I'm talking with somebody about being a potential private lender, I'm not going into that conversation from a mindset of lack. I'm going into that conversation with only one intention, and that is I want to give that person I'm talking to value. I want to give them knowledge. I want to give them education that they didn't know about, and I want to leave them in a better place than they were before I had the conversation. So if they don't end up being a private lender or us doing business, then that's fine. But I left them better off than when I started the conversation. They know more about the investing world than before our conversation.
Yep, and that's what I like about real estate industry in general, because especially real estate investors, its mentality is different from business or any other startup-y vibes. All about education and sharing the knowledge and collaborating and networking. And this is what makes it beautiful and interesting and inspiring. Every day you learn something new, you share the knowledge with someone, and in the end of the day, it's all about collaboration and networking and partnerships.
Absolutely.
So Jay, what from your experience in educating so many, again, investors throughout the years, what mistakes do you see most beginners make?
They feel like they got to pitch a deal. And I mean, that's just what's in their mind. They feel like they got to sell the deal or pitch the deal to a private lender. And, as we went over a few minutes ago, there is no pitching. There is no selling. It's all about serving. It's all about delivering. And, when you educate someone into this world on what private money is, and they want to do business with you, now you got to perform. You got to show up with a deal. But the mistake is don't pitch it. Yeah, okay, here's the answer, Alex. Here's the answer. What's the biggest mistake new real estate investors make when it comes to raising money? Here's the answer. They talk too much. They talk too much. They feel like they got to sell the deal, right? There's no selling of the deal. It's communicating the opportunity, how they're protected, how they can get high rates of return safely and securely, and then you just deliver the deal on a silver plate and they're ready to go.
Again, coming back to the basics, education and sharing the knowledge. It's all about that. And when you have you don't even have to have the deal to start educating people. You don't, right? You just need to talk about like what you've done in the past, what is the process, and how people can find some deals, so investors like yourself, and do those deals and be educated and be in a good place financially.
Exactly. And just keep that servant's heart mindset, right? Just keep that in the front of your mind, that you're serving and educating these people, and you don't have to worry about fear of rejection because you're not asking for anything.
Yep. Overcoming fears, just taking a step forward and educating people. And yeah, and I think a lot of people have issues with private money lending, private money investors, is they waiting until they have deal. And when they have deal and they try to not to pitch it, but they desperate because they need to raise money. You can feel it, right?
Oh,
you can feel the energy, attention, and in the end of the day, it's all about money. But it's better to start doing this process way before you got the deal and educate people and have this report and communication. Tell me this, Jay, after you educating people, what is your process on follow-ups until you do have a deal, right? If you don't have a deal still, you talk to people like half a year ago, and are you talking to them every month to say, hey, I'm still like want to check how you're doing, or what is your process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, when I have a new private lender that's got money, got retirement funds, whatever, and they want to invest, then guess what? They go to the top of the list. So I have this thing called the queue, So I've got all these private lenders. I'll cash out on a house, pay it off. And so now, if I don't have another property to substitute the collateral, I do a lot of substitutions of collateral where I'll keep their note open and they keep earning interest, but I change the property that is collateralizing that note. But if I don't have another property to collateralize the note, then I pay them off and they go to the bottom of the queue and they work their way up as I have deals that come along. But as I said, if I got a new private lender, they go to the top of the queue because I want to show them right away that I'm able to perform, I'm able to deliver, I'm able to invest their money. Now, for all the rest of the people that's got money sitting there, I communicate with them once a month. So, for example, I was reviewing all my private lenders yesterday that have money available. Well, as of yesterday, there was $1,200,000 just sitting there. I wasn't paying interest on it, but it was $1,200,000 that my private lenders have available. So I just went through the list and I texted them on my cell phone. I texted them just a current status on when it was looking like I was going to be able to invest their funds. Because if you don't stay in contact with your private lenders, they're going to find somewhere else to put that money and invest it. So I have communication once a month. Now, for those private lenders that I have their money invested, I only communicate with them one way. I send them interest checks. They love that communication. They love the interest check. They love the interest check in the mail. So that's the only communication they get while we're using their money on deals.
And I think a lot of new investors specifically, they procrastinate on finding and talking to private money lenders and investors because it's always a chicken or egg program. What I should have first, deal or investor or money, right? And you don't have to wait. You have to start educating people before you have a deal, and just keep these communication channels that you work in, keep your progress. If you're working on this deal and you progress, and just tell the people, share your progress. Hey, listen, we offer this many deals. We head into the contract soon, so this deal is coming soon, and you will be able to deploy capital.
Yeah, Alex, what you just said reminded me of this. So I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to take a little risk here, but I think I know your answer. So here's my question. Have you ever heard the guru on stage or the speaker on stage that's talking to new real estate investors, and they'll say something like this? They'll say, oh, just get the deal under contract. The money will show up. Have you ever heard that?
100%.
And or they'll say something like, "Oh, money finds good deals." That's the most stupid thing I ever heard in my life. I mean, it's like, has money got legs? I mean, like, you get a deal on the contract. Is a drone going to fly over your house and drop you a bag of money on your front porch? I mean, say, hey, Alex, answer me this question. Why do they say that on stage? Just get the deal under contract, the money will show up. I think I know why they say that. But why do you think they say that?
I think because they want more people into their programs to finance the deals, and they focused on the deals, right? And deal finding is just one puzzle. But the problem is when you find the deal and you don't have capital, you have this stress nerve, and you use that you can lose the deal. You spend already 3 months looking for the deal, negotiate and put under contract. You have AMD burden, and you don't have anyone to put money into this deal, then it could be a problem.
Yeah. So, I mean, think about it. How stressful is that to go get a deal under contract and you don't have a clue where the money's coming from? I mean, and then you go looking for the money, you're all stressed out. But now let's reverse that. You see, I practice and I coach and I teach. The money comes first. Get the money lined up with no deal attached to it, just like I've been talking about. You got a pledge. Somebody's got $250,000. You've already taught them the program. They know what the interest rate will be. They know what the maximum loan to value is. They know what the length of the note is. You've already talked with them about the frequency of payments. They know all that stuff. And now you go get a deal in the contract. There's always going to be deals. Always going to be deals. You go get a deal in the contract. You got it in the contract. Just think about how much more confident, how much more clarity, how many more offers are you going to make when you know where the money's coming from? And you can close in 7 days. You can close in 7 days with that money right there from your private lender, ready to close. And we get so many more offers accepted, Alex, because we can close in 7 days. So most of the sellers are living in the house. Well, they can't move out in 7 days. They can't move out. So what do we do? What I'm getting ready to share right now, Alex, is worth the entire time of your audience showing up for this show. We go ahead and close in 7 days, and we give the seller 50% of their proceeds. And then we negotiate 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, I don't care, how long they can live in their house for free. No rent, mortgage paid off. And then when they move out, according to our agreement, they get the other half of their proceeds. And you know, time kills deals. Time kills deals. The more time that goes by between you negotiating on the deal and actually closing on it, so many things can go wrong with that deal. People can change their mind. I mean, another investor can come along. So I want to close that baby today. I want to close it today, and then let them live there for free for whatever period of time that, you know, you agree on. But at least you're in control and you now own that property.
How do you structure these deals that you give only 50% to the seller at the closing and gives them 30 to 60 days to close?
Oh, sure. So I'll, you know, if I'm buying on terms, subject to the existing note, if I'm using private money, then we close the same way we do any other deal. But the closing agent, the real estate attorney here in North Carolina, title companies elsewhere, it's in the offer to purchase. The offer to purchase states will close on such and such a date, and the seller will get 50% of the proceeds. The other 50% is held in the escrow account at the real estate attorney or title company's office. And then the title company or the real estate attorney gets our permission to release the other 50% at whatever given date.
Got it. So you still have to fund the entire deal. It's not like you just funding 50% of the deal.
No. We go ahead and fund the whole deal. Yeah.
Got it. That's very new for me, and it's very interesting strategy. I will definitely look into it future. Okay, Jay, I have only last few questions for you. Quick hits, lightning round. So whatever first comes to your mind, let us know. One book or resource that shaped your real estate mindset.
Oh, wow. That was all the way back when I was 24 years old. I was in a very dark place, had no friends, had no spirituality. It was bad, really, really bad. So I went to the bookstore when I was 24 years old, and I found this book in the self-improvement section called University of Success. University of Success, and it's written by Og Mandino. It's still in print. But then specifically Mindset for Real Estate, I love Jack Canfield's book, The Success Principles. The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. There's 65 success principles in the book, and the very first principle is the most foundational principle on being successful, and that is be 100% responsible for everything that happens in your life. Take responsibility for everything that happens in your life. Be a victor and not a victim.
Taking ownership is one of the best things that can happen to any person, because now you don't have anyone to blame for it, right? If anything goes wrong, it's only you. And if anything goes wrong, you just get experience. So it's still nothing wrong can happen actually with you if you think about it. But if you take ownership, you can actually make it happen. Okay, next question. The most important trait a business or real estate leader should develop?
Well, I have to stop back and think on that. I was getting ready to say resilience, but there's something bigger than that. How do you have resilience? And I can tell you the answer to that. Get in a community of like-minded people that have got the same mindset and purpose that you do. Mastermind. My wife, Carol Joy, and I, we're in 3 different mastermind groups, and we run our own mastermind group of real estate investors. And so don't go about this business and be on an island by yourself like I was the first 6 years. Get in a mastermind group. Get involved in a community that's working on the same thing you are, and surround yourself with other people consistently that have already achieved what you want to achieve.
So basically the trait will be to become a good communicator, right? As a trait, we can say it, because you need to network, you need to talk to people, you need to receive information, give back to people tenfold, and put yourself in the groups larger and bigger than yourself so you can look forward to something bigger. Love it. Okay, one thing you wish you knew earlier in your real estate journey?
Oh, private money. I wish I knew about private money the first 6 years, because, I missed out on deals. I missed out on deals those first 6 years because I was maxing out my lines of credit. And since I started using private money, I've never missed out on a deal. Got more money than I need to do deals. So I wish I'd known about private money when I started out.
But it gives you experience, right? You work with private money. You got the experience needed to later on to talk to private money guys and say, hey, listen, I've done this and this and this, and let's go now do something together, right?
You got it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Everything happens for a reason, but I love it. Private money is cornerstone. Okay, one last question for you, Jay. If someone wants to reach out to you, get to your mastermind or networking program, or become one of your investors at some point, how they can reach out to you?
Sure. Well, the best way to reach out to me and to come into my world is to take me up on a free gift. So I've got a free gift for your audience, Alex. And this is a brand new private money script that I've just put together. It's called the Curiosity Opener. The Curiosity Opener. And I get asked all the time, Jay, how do I start conversations with maybe a potential private lender that's in my own network? So I put this script together. It's exactly what I say. It's how I use it. And it's free. I've got it in a PDF. You can download it for free. And here's where you go to get it. Go to www.jayconner, and I'm an ER, not an OR. So go to www.jayconner.com/scripts. SCRIPTS. jayconner.com/scripts. And you'll be able to download that Curiosity Opener script. And if you like that script, which I think you will, then that will show you how to get my full, complete private money $1 million script collection. So that's a great way to get connected with me and be in contact. And I'd love to serve your audience, Alex.
Love it. Thank you so much. We're going to put this website on the screen and in the description so you guys can easily follow along and get that script and do this action and get on your path of private money investing. Jay, that's a wrap. That's everything from me. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Alex, thank you so much for having me on your show. It was a blast, and you are an amazing interviewer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. And to everyone listening, if you found this episode helpful, make sure to like and subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're tuning in from. You can find Jay's work and resources at jayconner.com, and we'll drop all the links in the show notes. And as always, keep moving forward.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jayconner.com/money guide. That's jayconner.com/money guide and download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jconnor.com/money guide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with Jay Connor.